Every evening, as the sun melted into the Lagos horizon, painting the sky orange and purple, Mama Jubril's Suya stand came alive. The smell of roasted meat and spices drew people from blocks away, office workers loosening their ties, students with hungry eyes, taxi drivers taking their break. Everyone agreed, Mama Jubra made the best suya in all of Yoba. Mama, give me 3 sticks. Extra pepper, they would call out, waving their naira notes. Mama Jubra would smile, her head wrapped in a colorful gele, her hands moving with practiced grace as she turned the meat over the hot coals. The meat was always tender, always perfect, and the price was so reasonable that people joked she was running a charity, not a business. Mama, what's your secret? They asked. She would laugh, a deep throaty sound. Love, my children. I cook with love. What they didn't know was that Mama Jubro had another name. Before she came to Lagos 5 years ago, she was called Zainab. And before that, in the small village of Kajuru where she was born, they called her the Cursed One. Mama Jubro, whose maiden name was Zainab, first felt the hunger when she was 12 years old. It started the night her grandmother died. The old woman had called her to her bedside, gripped her hand with surprising strength, and whispered, "It has chosen you. Fight it, child. Fight it with everything you have." Fight what, Grandma? But her grandmother was gone, her eyes staring at nothing. That night, Zainab woke up with her mouth watering. She was hungrier than she'd ever been in her life, but it wasn't food she craved. When she passed her younger brother sleeping on his mat, she found herself staring at his arm, at the soft flesh, imagining how it would taste. She ran outside and vomited into the darkness, horrified at herself. The hunger came again, and again, each time stronger. She stopped eating regular food, it tasted like ash in her mouth. She grew thin. Her mother took her to the clinic, but the doctors found nothing wrong. She prayed, she fasted, nothing helped. One night, walking home from the stream, she found a dead goat by the roadside. Before she could think, she was tearing into it with her bare hands, eating the raw flesh. And for the first time in months, the hunger quieted. But it didn't last. The hunger wanted something specific, something warm, something that screamed. She was 17 when she finally understood what her grandmother had meant. Their family line carried something ancient, passed down through generations. A curse, a blessing, a hunger that could only be satisfied one way. Some family members had fought it and gone mad. Others had embraced it and become monsters. Her grandmother had found a middle path. She ate the dead, the already gone, those who wouldn't be missed. She worked as a death washer, preparing bodies for burial, and she took her payment in secret ways. But her grandmother was gone now, and Zainab was so hungry. When Zainab was 23, she was living in a small room in Kaduna, working as a housemaid. She had learned to manage the hunger with animal meat, goats, chickens, anything she could afford, but it was never enough. She was always on the edge, always one moment away from losing control. That night, Ton, who was a thief, broke into her room while she slept. She woke to find him standing over her, a knife in his hand. "Make any noise and I'll cut you," he whispered. But when he reached for her small bag of money, she grabbed his wrist. The hunger roared up inside her like a living thing. She was stronger than she looked. The curse gave her that. Before he could scream, before she could think, her teeth were in his throat. She came back to herself an hour later, sitting on the floor, covered in blood. Ton's body lay before her, barely recognizable. The horror of what she'd done hit her like a physical blow. She sobbed until dawn. Then, because she had no choice, she cleaned up. She was good at cleaning. She'd been a maid for 5 years. She knew how to make evidence disappear. She cut the body into pieces. She burned what she couldn't use. And the rest she kept. For 3 months, she didn't feel the hunger. She felt almost human again. But she also felt something else. Shame, disgust, And underneath it all, a terrible relief that she'd finally fed the thing inside her properly. When the hunger returned, she knew she faced a choice. She could let it consume her, turn her into the monster it wanted her to be. Or she could find a way to satisfy it that she could live with. That's when she thought of Lagos. Big, crowded, anonymous Lagos, where people disappeared every day and no one asked too many questions. Mama Jubril's Suya stand was perfectly positioned, near the bus stop, far from the streetlights, in a neighborhood where people minded their own business. But the Suya stand was just the front. The real business happened in the room she rented behind it. She found them on the streets, the ones no one would miss. The homeless men sleeping under bridges. The street children who'd been abandoned by everyone. She would approach them with kindness, offer them a meal, a place to sleep. "Come, my dear, you look so tired. Let me help you." They always came. Humans are desperate for kindness, even from strangers. She gave them 2 good days. She fed them real food, let them bathe, gave them clean clothes. She talked to them, learned their stories. Most had no families, no one waiting for them, no one who would file a police report. On the 3rd night, she put sleeping pills in their food. She told herself it was mercy. They died in their sleep, dreaming of full bellies and warm beds. It was more than life had ever given them. And after, she used every part. Nothing was wasted. Some became suya, some became stew. Some she sold to the woman who ran the restaurant down the street, who never asked questions about where Mama Jubril got her bushmeat. The hunger was satisfied, the business was good, and she was helping people, wasn't she? Giving them comfort in their final days. She almost believed it herself. One day a boy noticed, his name was Emmanuel, and he was too smart for his own good. He was 15, a secondary school student who passed Mama Jubril's stand every day on his way home. He loved her suya, it was the best he'd ever tasted. But Emmanuel noticed things other people didn't. He noticed that Mama Jubril's meat never looked quite like other suya. The texture was different, smoother. He noticed that she had no supplier. No one ever delivered meat to her stand. He noticed the homeless woman who'd been sleeping near the bus stop for weeks suddenly disappeared the same day he saw her following Mama Jubra into her room. He noticed the smell that came from Mama Jubra's room late at night. Not the smell of cooking, something else. Something chemical, like the chlorine they used to clean the school toilets. Emmanuel was studying to be a doctor. He was curious, and he was foolish in the way only the young can be. He thought he was invincible. One night, instead of going home, he hid behind the suya stand and waited. At midnight, he saw Mama Jubra carry something wrapped in black plastic bags to the back. He heard the sound of chopping, the smell of raw meat, and underneath it all, a smell he recognized from the day his uncle died, the sweet, sick smell of human blood. His heart hammered in his chest. He should leave, he should run, but he needed to be sure. He crept closer to the window of her room. Through a gap in the curtain, he saw the body on the table, the knife in Mama Jubra's hand, the pieces of meat arranged carefully in a bowl. Emmanuel's stomach lurched. He stumbled backward, knocked over a bottle. The sound was soft, but Mama Jubra heard it. She was always listening. Their eyes met through the window. For a moment, neither moved. Then Emmanuel ran. Emmanuel's legs pumped as he sprinted down the dark street. Behind him, he heard footsteps. Fast, impossibly fast.
Boy, stop!
Mama Jubra's voice was different now. Deeper, hungry. He ran toward the main road, toward lights and people and safety. His school bag bounced on his back. His lungs burned. He could hear her getting closer. A hand grabbed his collar, yanked him backward. He fell hard on the concrete, scraping his palms. Mama Jubra loomed over him, and in the moonlight, she looked different. Her eyes reflected light like an animal's. Her teeth seemed too sharp. "Please," Emmanuel gasped. "Please, I won't tell anyone. I promise." She stared at him, breathing hard. The hunger was rising in her. He smelled young, healthy, full of life. But then she saw his school uniform, the textbook that had fallen from his bag, advanced biology, the pencil behind his ear. "You're a student," she said. "Yes, Ma, please. I'm Emmanuel Okafor. I live with my mother and my 3 sisters. I'm going to be a doctor, please." Something in his voice, the naked fear, the desperate hope, cut through the hunger. She saw herself at his age, scared, confused, wanting to leave. She released his collar. "Go," she said quietly. "Run home, lock your doors, never come back here, never speak of this." Emmanuel didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled to his feet and ran, not looking back. Mama Jubra watched him go, her hands shaking. She had let him leave. Why? The hunger screamed at her, demanded she chase him down, finish what she'd started. But she didn't. For the first time in 3 years, she had chosen not to feed. It terrified her. Emmanuel didn't go to school the next day, or the day after. He lay in bed, feverish, seeing Mama Jubral's face every time he closed his eyes. The pieces of meat on her table, the blood on her hands. His mother was worried. "Emmanuel, what's wrong? Are you sick?" "Just tired, Mama." But he wasn't tired. He was paralyzed with fear and guilt. People had been eating that meat. He had eaten that meat. He felt responsible. He should tell someone. The police, his mother, someone. But who would believe him? And if they did, if they investigated, Mama Jubra would know he talked. Would she come for him? For his family? For 3 days, he wrestled with his conscience. On the 4th day, his younger sister, Grace, came home excited. "Emmanuel, guess what? Mama said we can get Suya tonight. The good one, from Mama Jubral's stand. She got paid today." Emmanuel's blood turned to ice. "No." Grace jumped at his shout. Their mother came into the room. "Emmanuel, what's wrong with you? We can't eat from there. Please, Mama. Anywhere else. Just not there." His mother's eyes narrowed. "Why? What do you know?" And that's when it all came spilling out. Everything. His mother listened in growing horror. When he finished, her face was pale. "We need to tell the police," she whispered. Detective Amina Bello didn't believe in monsters. She believed in evidence, facts, logic. In her 15 years with the Lagos police, she'd seen terrible things, corruption, murder, abuse, but always committed by ordinary humans for ordinary reasons. Money, power, jealousy. So when Mrs. Okafor came to the station with her son, telling a wild story about a suya seller who was butchering people, Amina was skeptical. "Madam, do you have any proof?" "My son saw it with his own eyes." Amina looked at Emmanuel. The boy was clearly terrified, but was it the terror of truth or the terror of being caught in a lie? "Son, do you use drugs?" "No more." "Have you been sleeping well?" "I know what I saw." Amina sighed. Still, protocol was protocol. "Fine, give me the address. I'll check it out." That evening, Amina went to Yoba. She bought suya from Mama Jubra's stand, chatting casually. "Business is good?" she asked. "God is faithful," Mama Jubra said with a warm smile. "Where do you get your meat?" "I have a supplier in Ketu. Very reliable." The meat tasted normal. Delicious, even. Amina saw nothing suspicious. Just a pleasant middle-aged woman running a food stand. But Amina hadn't become a detective by ignoring her instincts. Something about Mama Jubra's eyes bothered her. They were too watchful, too careful. "Can I see inside your room?" "Just routine check." Mama Jubra's smile didn't waver. Of course, the room was spotless, almost too spotless. The smell of bleach was overwhelming. "You clean a lot," Amina observed. "Cleanliness is next to godliness." Amina looked around. Nothing incriminating. But then she noticed the drain in the corner. The concrete around it was stained darker than the rest of the floor. Old stains. Deep stains. "What do you use this room for?" "Storage. Preparation. Sometimes I sleep here." Amina knelt by the drain. Under the bleach smell, there was something else. Faint but unmistakable. The coppery smell of old blood. She stood up slowly. "I'd like to take a sample from this drain." For the first time, Mama Jubra's smile faltered. Just for a second. Then it was back. Of course, whatever you need. But they both knew. The game had changed. That night, Mama Jubra packed her bags. She should run, leave Lagos, start over somewhere new, as she'd done before. But she was tired. So tired of running, of hiding, of being what she was. The hunger was back, stronger than ever. She hadn't fed since she'd let Emmanuel go. It clawed at her insides, demanding satisfaction. She could feel herself losing control. Soon, she wouldn't be able to choose her victims carefully. Soon, she'd grab anyone, a child, a mother, an innocent. She thought about her grandmother's words, fight it with everything you have. She'd been fighting for 28 years. Maybe it was time to stop. She wrote a letter, long and detailed. Everything, what she was, what she'd done, the names of her victims, the ones she remembered. An apology that meant nothing and everything. She sealed it in an envelope and addressed it to Detective Amina Bello. Then she walked to the police station and turned herself in. The interrogation room was small and hot. Amina sat across from Mama Jubra, Zainab, and listened to the confession. At first, she thought the woman was insane. The curse, the hunger, the bodies, it sounded like a horror movie. But then Zainab gave her details. Locations, names, things only the killer would know. Amina's team started digging. They found the remains buried behind the Suya stand. 15 bodies. 15 people who'd been missing, most of them never reported because no one cared enough to report them. The city exploded with horror. The news spread like wildfire. Cannibal killer caught in Lagos. The Suya stand of death. People who'd eaten Mama Jubra's Suya for years vomited in the streets, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat meat. During the trial, Zainab was calm, almost peaceful. Why did you turn yourself in? Amina asked her during a visit. Zainab was quiet for a long moment. The boy, Emmanuel, I let him live, and something broke inside me. I realized I could still choose. Even with this hunger, even with this curse, I could still choose. You chose to kill 15 people. I chose to kill people who were already dying, the forgotten ones. Is that better than killing innocents? I don't know, but I'm tired of choosing at all. What about the curse, the hunger? Zainab smiled sadly. In prison, there's no meat. Maybe I'll finally starve it to death. Or maybe it will kill me. Either way, it ends. Emmanuel never went back to Yoba. He transferred to a school across the city. The nightmares faded, slowly. He became a doctor, as he'd always wanted. He specialized in psychiatry. He wanted to understand the darkness in human minds, the things that made people do terrible things. Zainab died in prison 3 years later. The official cause was starvation. She'd refused to eat anything, not even water toward the end. Some said she was finally at peace. Others said the hunger had finally consumed her from the inside. In the villages around Kajuru, old women still tell their granddaughters to be careful, to watch for the signs. The curse, they say, doesn't die, it just waits, quiet and patient, until the next generation, until the hunger wakes again. The end.